Guys, I think I just figured out something that I should have learned a really long time ago. I figured out how ions work. Ions, like ION, like the stuff that you make in chemistry. So basically, you know how atoms look like, right? Like this. They normally look like that. So when you form an ion in a chemical reaction, you take away the the electrons, the stuff on the outside, or put and add more or take away the electrons on the outer shell. And how this happens is wait, no, that's not important. So, first of all, you got to understand that electrons determine how reactive a atom is. So the less electrons it has in the outer shell, so like 1, then the more reactive it is. And noble gases, they're like the most stable. They have 8 electrons in their outer shell. So they're the most stable. They do not form ions because they are stable enough and they do not care what the others electrons are doing because they are fine. So because the atoms are really lazy, the the atoms with 1 to 3 valence electrons, they will lose those electrons to become more stable and achieve an outer shell. And how that happens is when you react it with something that has more electrons, so maybe 5 to 7 electrons, the the, the one with more electrons gets the extra electrons and becomes an anion to fill their outer shell. And the one that loses their electrons becomes cat a cation. So basically, when you do a chemical reaction, you put a cation and an anion together to form ionic bonding. So those two atoms put together will both become stable because one of them loses their electrons and gives it up for the other, and the other takes those extra electrons and they're like, yay, I have a full outer shell now. And that's ionic bonding. And that only happens when you balance out the entire thing. So when you have electrons that have wait no atoms that have 4 electrons, you have to put two together to do covalent bonding where they share those electrons and they're like, you know what, okay, we can share the electrons and we can both have a full outer shell. So that means they're both stable. So what happens in a chemical reaction is when you don't have enough, you ask your friend for more, or you give the rest of what you have to your friend, and you both become really stable. That's actually a really smart way to think about it. But I don't know, I just figured this out and I wanted to clarify it because it took me really, really long to Google the answers. Bye.